What's up, y'all? This is the Schooner Pod Weekend Spread Edition. I'm going to be your host tonight. It's Jamison. I'm here with the captain, Boatin Blake. Bobby's at the Thunder game watching a little bit of Nuggets Thunder. So we're going to take over, talk about Big 12 basketball. Because I know a lot of people, including me, I kind of paid attention at the beginning of the season, but I really didn't dive in. I don't really dive deep into Big 12 basketball until conference play. And so I've been catching up, and some of y'all might not be in yet. So take a listen to this podcast. We're going to go through a lot of the Big 12 teams. Blake, what you thinking about the Big 12 this year? Is it this big powerhouse of a conference that we always thought it was, or is it having a down year?
Yeah, no, this is the premiere. This is the cream of the crop. I'm wearing it on the hat, the shield. I rep the shield in football. I love Big 12 football. But the one thing we can hang our hat on, we are the best basketball conference by far. It's not even close. I know the narratives out there today, what is Oglesby or whatever his name, trying to throw out that the Big 12 is really just a facade, that they played nobody in their non-conference games, which boost their advanced metrics so they get more teams in. It's just the most BS thing in the world. It's like all the out of conference strength of schedules for Power 5 teams are going to be lower because you're playing by teams a lot. The teams with the higher non-conference strength of schedules are going to be those bad teams who want the paychecks to fund the rest of their athletic programs, so they're going to take those losses early and then just care about conference play. Big 12, best in non-conference against Power 5 opponents, highest win percentage. You even take in the 10 best conference, so your Mountain West, your A10s, some of those other ones that are not, I guess, P6 conferences, still the best. This we are seeing, and you can even see it in the standings today. Just if you haven't been watching, just go take a look. All these teams are close. All these teams are good. Not one team is running away with it just yet. There's still some flaws for teams at the top, and the bottom is just super feisty. So this has been probably the best year of basketball the Big 12's ever seen.
Yeah, it's extremely competitive. You don't know what's going to happen every night. The powerhouses that we've seen in the past, Kansas can't win a freaking road game in conference, so that just throw that in the trash. And then Baylor is just imploding currently. I think they're losing to Central Florida as we speak.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
there's that. So this conference is a little bit different, but it's a little bit of the same. And I feel like, Blake, just looking at college basketball as a whole, and for someone that I don't pay attention to it as close as you do, but I dabble and I pay attention to it pretty closely. It's hard for me to really dive deep into this season and really buy into it as like an up season because we don't get as much talent in college basketball this year. This is known to be one of the worst talented college basketball years that we've had in a really long time. So is it just me thinking, oh, I don't have many stars, like freshman stars to get excited about, any diaper dandies to get excited about.
God.
Or is that like a bias that I have, or is this kind of like a boring college basketball season? Please tell me I'm wrong.
I don't think it's boring per se, but I definitely think it's starting to shift the more we see it. I feel like the last few seasons, we really haven't had those freshman stars. I think the last one that really rolls off the mind is Zion, that really captivated the entire nation and everybody wanted to watch him. And we're going more towards a model of your Zach Edey's, your RJ Davis's, your Caleb Loves. These are guys that are probably going to be, or Zach Edey this year might be a lottery pick, which is just the wildest thing. Hasn't really developed. That shows how bad the draft is. Zach Edey was maybe going to be a late round second guy last year, and now he's probably going to go in the lottery just because there's absolutely no depth. But I guess boring in the sense, if you are an NBA fan and you're the only reason why you're watching college basketball is to see the future of the NBA, I don't think that's there this year. But I definitely
still,
do.
you want to see young stars, right? And just even if you're a college basketball fan, and we don't even, you say the last one, Zion Williamson, still we had Cade Cunninghams and Chet Holmgrens and guys like that still.
Yes, so I think it's not as focused on the stars, but rather the selling point now is we don't really have those dominant teams anymore. We really, like a UConn or Purdue, they're dominant, but they obviously have their flaws. Teams can beat them on any given night, and it seems like where it used to be, there was like 3 or 4 that you were pretty sure like one of those teams was going to win the national championship. I feel like the field is getting a lot deeper. We're starting to look at 10s, 15s, like even like we talk about Purdue. Like Purdue is a great team. I think they're vastly improved. I think they're going to go a lot deeper in March Madness than we've seen in the past, but they're still vulnerable. Like they're still like right now they're struggling to beat Northwestern at home.
They're losing right now to Northwestern.
Like it's just one of those things. It's like, sure, you're gonna lose a little bit. It's like kind of what college football has been trying to do. It's like they want that parity. I feel like college basketball is achieving it, but you just don't get, I think, that next level star power, that freshman that like really wows anybody, like a Cade Cunningham that like can transform OSU the year he plays there. We're just not seeing that as much, but we're also seeing, I think, more senior-laden rosters, which makes about 15, 20 teams feel like they could actually compete for a national championship.
Yeah, so who do you think's the best player, just not best team, best player, singular talented player in the Big 12 right now?
Oh, singular
Which
talent.
is an extremely hard question. And the first person that comes to my mind, you do not want to hear his name.
God, because like, of course, like the draft analysts, they're gonna go, "What's
no? I'm talking about like just base college basketball. We can throw away the NBA thing because I understand like there's different things of scouts versus I'm pretty sure the forward from Kansas starts. He's a junior.
Hunter Dickinson.
No. Forward, like small forward. It's like a junior. I'm completely blanking on him. Kevin McCullers.
Well,
yeah, he's a guy that's catching a lot, but. Honestly, is Hunter Dickinson the most talented guy?
No.
I knew you were. I knew you didn't want to hear it.
No. And see, that's like this is the problem with Kansas. Okay, Hunter Dickinson's a good college player. Like he gets his stats everywhere he goes, but he's kind of a stat merchant. Like those Michigan teams never succeeded with Hunter Dickinson. This Kansas team, although they have talent, it feels like all around that like squad, they just can't win with him. He's not like a prototypical big that is able to dominate like a typical like Kansas guy, like or I can't even Abaji, like some of those good wings, or like a Joel Embiid, like somebody that they could throw in the post and dominate. He's neither one of those. He doesn't seem to fit the system. My guy's Jamal Sneed. I think that Houston has taken kind of like the next level when it comes, like they finally clicked. Like they struggled at the beginning of conference, but when I was watching him against Texas the other night, and it just seemed like every time Texas was coming back, he's like a true point guard, like a good college point guard that can take over any game. I prefer that over a guy like Hunter Dickinson that can't really create his own shot, can't really do much. He has to rely on others to get on the ball. Yeah, I'm out on Hunter Dickinson. I think a lot of Kansas's problems are probably because of him, that they're having just to force the ball through him so much.
Yeah, let's kind of peg Houston versus Kansas, because even though Kansas is on the downward spiral, just looking at the top of this conference, don't tell me Texas Tech, Iowa State being afraid of Kansas in the standings. I'm looking at Houston and Kansas as the top 2 teams, and I think it's a clear tier that Houston is number 1, and there's no one on the same tier as them. Am I correct by thinking that?
I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm. And it's just they got great guard play, and just seeing LJ Cryer going over to Houston too, like they've got a lot of guys that can just go out there and just solidify you in conference play. Really what we've seen with really competitive basketball, having smart guards that can go there and get their own buckets, and also capitalize the free throw line. Like Emmanuel Sharp also is a guy that I really liked whenever I was watching that Texas game too. They just got LJ Cryer, Sharp, and Sheed were like pretty impressive to me, to where they are warranted in a complete tier of their own in terms of the Big 12.
Yeah, it's like whenever you have like the more guards, the merrier. It seems like the best teams always have 2 elite guards, and you get that with Jamal Sneed, LJ Cryer, like Cryer coming from Baylor. He's experienced, like knows the conference, and it's one of those things. It's like I love watching them play because, like, similar to like the Thunder for any like NBA watchers, like they love to get out in space, and like I feel like when they thrive the most is when they're running in space, they're passing, they kind of offer a lot of size, but with a lot of athleticism. Like they're long, like they don't have like a super big guy that I feel like clogs the middle, but they're mobile and they're able to disrupt passes. That's why you see them, like I think they're number 1 one in defense right now in Kim Palm. Like, they're insane. Like, this team, they can defend all 5 positions, but still be athletic, still get you on the run. Their only problem is like, whenever they start doing the, like, half-court offense a little bit, Jamal Sneed is, like, he's fishing for that threes, like, taking bad shots. Like, that really seems like the only thing that stops them. Is, like, they were, the other night against Texas, like, they would go on, like, 12-0 runs easy, but then they would just kind of slow it down. Everybody's hunting for that 3, and once the ball stops for them, I just feel like that's the only thing that can hurt them. But yeah, they're just, it's the combination. They have great offense, the best defense. Like, you can't ask for anything more from a front runner.
Right here, this is going to be releasing on February 1st. So right in February, you would say Houston is the best team in the Big 12. There's no doubt about it, but we've seen this from Kansas in the past, that they like to play around. We start to doubt them. They've got talent on their team. We know they got talent, but they just keep dropping random games. I'm like, this just doesn't seem like them. Maybe it's not their year, and then they just hit it hard when March comes around. It's hard for me to really not buy into Kansas when their stock is low right now, Blake, because they've got guys, like Kevin McCullers, they got guys like Hunter Dickinson. And even though they can't play on the road right now, I think that these are going to be things that they'll fix up later. And I bet you conversation near the end of the year, Kansas, Houston should be probably in the same tier.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me is just, like, Kansas away from home right now. It just, this Kansas team just feels off. Like, I know you mentioned it's like a typical Kansas thing. They kind of mess around, but then end up winning the conference. Like, that's what they tend to do. But never has Bill Self in his career started Big 12 play 4-3. Like, it feels like a little bit more. Like, I'm not saying they're going to bottom out completely, but I think some of those, like, those Tech, Iowa State, TCU, like, they're definitely knocking on the door. Like, we've seen those teams be competitive with them. Like, I know Iowa State straight up beat them, like, bludgeoned them. It took like a KU last second run to even get that thing.
It was a closer game. I watched it all the way through. It was a competitive game.
It got closer at the end. It got closer at the end, but, like, Iowa State just dominated. Like,
they controlled it the whole game, but it was still a close game.
Yeah, and then, like, TCU goes into their home court and, like, one flagrant, like, the worst flagrant foul I've ever seen I've ever seen in my life, and I feel like that was the TCU squad that wasn't even hitting on all cylinders yet. So it does worry me that, like, when you look at their away schedule going, like, their like last few away games, the easiest one they have is K-State, which I think is kind of a walkover right now, but still, it's a rivalry game. Like, that's that always poses issues. So I bet Kansas does not finish. Like, I'm pretty sure that Kansas will not finish in that second spot.
Yeah, so I think that kind of, like, really cuts it at the best in the Big 12, but kind of a good transition. Would you consider Kansas overrated, or what people are thinking about them right now is just about right? I mean, you're not going to say underrated, but, like, Are they just about right now, or do you think that they're still a little bit overrated?
I think they're just about right. I'm like, if you still factor in their preseason expectations, like, very overrated. Like, this team is definitely significantly worse. Like, they were picked number 1 to finish in the Big 12. I don't think they're probably going to do that this year. They were picked, I think, consensus number 1 for the AP poll, and, like, they look like there's a class of teams significantly above them this year. But, like, I think as, like, if you've been watching throughout the Big 12 season, I think they're kind of just properly rated. Like, I think this is one of Kansas's probably worst teams they've seen in a while. They're still going to win games. They still are competitive and, like, still can defend home. So it's one of those things, like, if you still expect them to win the Big 12, then yeah, probably a little bit overrated. But I think, like, second, third, right there, like, they could easily still compete. Like, they still have the best coach in the league.
Yeah, that's for sure. And just, I like, also KJ Adams is another guy I really like for him too. He's got a lot of hustle. They've got the tools, but we'll see. Talking about overrated teams, I'm going to give you one team, and you're going to throw away all your bias, and you're going to tell me, are they overrated? And that's Texas Tech. Are they as good as they are saying they are?
I think they maybe slight overrated, but I think they're really good. Like, I love their coach. Like, he was great at UNT. Is like took that program that like really doesn't have like that much buy-in and like won the NIT last year. Has always been like, I feel like they made a tournament too, like, and won a tournament game. Like, they've always been really competitive. They always had a good defensive philosophy. Like, that's why it just like that marriage feels perfect out in Lubbock. It's just because like I think his name's McCaslin. Like, he has a perfect defensive philosophy. Like, those UNT teams were always just hard to face. I think the offensive numbers are a little lacking. I think they see themselves as like, I think they're probably like top middle of the pack. Like, I think that's how it'll be all said and done. Like, I think they've had some like favorable bounces go their way. Some of the teams that they've played probably like, I think what you saw against TCU last night is probably like more of what you're going to see of Tech. It's like they can be competitive. They can take leads. Like, I don't think they're going to be blown out in a lot of games, but also too, like, I think they're going to start losing some close ones. Like, I think, let me see, like, their best win probably on their schedule is BYU, and the BYU I think is a really streaky team, and then like Texas.
They beat Oklahoma.
They beat Oklahoma, but I don't know what to think about. That's where I need to pick your
Can I transition here?
Yes,
Can I say my team that's the most overrated in the Big 12? I think it's Oklahoma. And I talked about this on our last podcast, which wasn't a basketball podcast, but OU got a lot of hype because they were one of the few teams that were undefeated at the, January point of the year. And everyone was hyping them up because of wins like USC Trojans, because they were hyped on Thanksgiving. That was a game that everyone was watching because they were looking for supports. And guess what? Like, USC ain't it. I don't care if they got you.
They're bad.
I don't care if they got one of like the projected top 5 draft picks in NBA. Like, they are not it. And so, like, looking at Oklahoma basketball schedule from top to bottom in terms of like their non-conference, like, they've got some good wins, Blake. But what made them propel to this like infinite, like, they shouldn't even be thought of as a team that's not a top 25 team? Like, every single hard game that they played this year, like Arkansas, Arkansas is not that good of a team.
Arkansas is miserable. They're miserable.
Providence, I would give it to them, but like Providence themselves, like, still they're 14-6 on the year. Like, whenever we played a tough team like UNC, it didn't look like we were in the game the whole time. I think Oklahoma's a talented team, but to say they were a top 10 team in the country, I think that was a little bit too much.
Yeah, like, I think OU got like bit a little bit by like the advanced analytics side of the sport. Like, I think BYU did the same. It's like their projections started so low. It's like OU was voted 12th to finish 12th in the Big 12, BYU 13th, and they come out and they actually start winning these games. I think against, like you said, it's like Iowa, USC, Providence, Arkansas. Like, preseason, these were considered like maybe like at worst like borderline tournament teams. Like, these are seemed like solid teams, but it does feel like a house of cards. Like, it just seems like every time, as like the Iowa State win was super impressive, and like seeing how Iowa State is now, like looking even better, or almost double digits, but like good home win. But it's just like whenever OU has gone on the road, like they went to TCU, Kansas, lost, and then the weird home stretch, I'm like, Texas has been looking funky, but like thumped OU, and then Texas Tech just kind of hangs around and gets it right at the end. I think OU's a very solid squad. I think they're a tournament team, but I felt like they went from the most like underrated team to like one of the most overrated teams in the Big 12 very quickly, because the AP voters were loving y'all. Like, they were like, even when y'all like lost 2 at home, still 23 in the polls. Like, they're not really moving you all, like, they're not bumping you out for that. So I think OU's well coached. I think they're really talented. Do I think they're probably like mid-tier Big 12? Yes, and like that's a really good team this year. But I feel like they're just very mid. Like, they're not gonna threaten to get to the top of the conference this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that we should be very proud of this team that we have. But it's not a top 10 team in the country, and we should be very ecstatic to stay in the top 25 throughout everything that we're going through. So, we had a good win versus K-State last night, even though K-State's, bottom of the bottom in the conference, but like, still, we should be happy for games like where we go on the road and beat Cincinnati. I think that's stellar for us. And looking at Oklahoma's players, the really biggest thing is like you want your best player to come out and be a guy that you can lean on and rely on. And we're at the point right now with Javen McCollum that I don't feel confident with the ball in his hands anymore, just because the way he's shown in conference play. And you can say, oh, he'll get out of this funk, but it looks like he just isn't physical enough to play in this conference play in Big 12. He looks fatigued. He can't keep up. So it just really worries me that our best player is already showing some signs that he might not be the guy that we thought he was in terms of competitive edge and physicality, that we do have plenty of talent on this roster, but you want to have that guy that you can lean on. And I don't know if it's Javen McCollum right now.
I agree. It just feels like they were trying to go to him at the end of that Texas Tech game, and it was just like, not like bad decisions, but it didn't feel like he was the type of guy that could take the game over and like really secure the win for OU. Like, get that man the ball, he's going to get it to us. Like, seems to have disappeared a little bit in some of those bigger moments.
Do you got another team that you think's vastly overrated in the Big 12?
Yes.
Oh, yes. You said, let me serve this.
It's Texas. We have to talk about Texas because
are they overrated though?
They are compared. They were picked third
right now. Opinions right now. Obviously, the season is different. Beginning of the season is different, but where they are right now,
these were still floating around in the AP rankings, and I think this team is like absolute trash at points. Like, I think it does not make sense. Like, Rodney Terry has no business being a Power 5 coach. Like, absolutely, this goes out to most sports, if not all sports. Usually hiring the interim is a bad idea whenever these teams, like last year Texas had a senior heavy team that when they got rid of Chris Beard, it's not like a freshman team that like really needed that development. These were guys that were expected to go really deep into the tournament already. They had a good roster. Rodney Terry didn't have to do anything besides be a cheerleader and just be a vibes guy. Now he has to actually run a program and he cannot do it. We already saw the UCF thing. UCF comes in, beats them in their own place, and like flips out about the horns down. Probably like the only person in like probably UT Nation that actually cares about horns down, and it's like created a mockery of this program. They have 3 studs on that roster. That's the thing. It's like they get so much hype because they have Dylan Disu, they have Max Abmas, and they have Tyrese Hunter. Like, they are loaded with talent, and they have good bench players. They have everything for a good roster, but they can't put anything together. It seems like they can't defend. They can't get consistent scoring out of any of these guys. They go on runs occasionally, but it just seems so disjointed. It feels like it has no plan. And like, that's why, like, I feel like Texas is still getting a lot of love for being a quality win. Will still float around, but I think they're closer probably to like I think Cincinnati's better. Like, I think when I was going through my tiers, I put them in the D tier. I put them with Kansas State. I think Kansas State's worse. But I just think this Texas team is about to fall apart. I think Rodney Terry's about to get a nice $14 million, like, cut it. We're going a different direction, because that was a horrible hire. Crystal Conte, like, I love the man at TCU, but just kind of besides, thank God he landed Sark, because some horrible hires when it comes to the basketball area.
That's for sure. And I think if they wouldn't have hit that buzzer beater versus Baylor, they would be even worse of talk. That completely shifted everything. And then they go and they play BYU, and just that game, they're losing by double digits the whole game.
It just, like, I watched the BYU game, felt like they weren't in it. They were kind of being competitive, I'll give it, with Houston, but I just also never felt like Houston had control that entire game. Like, even though it went to OT, I just felt like it was like, Texas can't put together enough of a effort in the final 5 minutes, like in overtime, in order to put this Houston team away. Like, there's just absolutely no way. And it just seems to be popping up on the court that anytime they play somebody good, whether it be home or away, they just fall to them. Like, they just fall to them. And then they'll like beat up on like an OU or something that I think is like relatively mid.
Well, that's what talented players do.
Yeah.
So you're going to have those type of games. So it makes total sense. Who's underrated in the Big 12 in your opinion?
I think the team that people aren't talking about enough right now.
Oh, here it comes.
I think has the potential to finish second in the conference this year.
Okay, the potential.
It's the TCU Horned Frogs. It's the TCU Horned Frogs. I feel like Iowa State's getting all the love right now. They got that Hilton magic, and it's like fair. Like they're impossible to beat at home right now. I do not want to play. I'm not looking forward to that game. Iowa State's just kind of a house of horrors, but I feel like they're getting their due. I think they have a top 10 rating right now. I think it's one of the highest rated Iowa State teams of all time. This is the best TCU team of all time. Even with some of those guys, your Kenrich Williams teams, your Desmond Bain, even Mike Miles, like, this team is so solid, and they finally come into themselves. Like, they don't have a guy that they're going to rely on, like a Mike Miles, that it's like, okay, at the end of the game, you got to go get the buckets because you're our only reliable offense. They kind of have 3 or 4 guys there now. Jameer Nelson Jr. looking fantastic. I knew he was great at Delaware, so as a ball handler, kind of guy to push the pace, can shoot, a reliable free throw shooter, which is something TCU can never get right. He's looking fantastic. Like, I think the most underrated transfer right now in the Big 12 is Trey Tennyson from Texas A&M Corpus Christi. This guy is one of the best three-point shooters in America right now. He's hitting down everything, like dropped over 20 last night on Texas Tech. Emmanuel Miller, a guy who's been a staple of the TCU program over the last few years. And it just seems like they are actually, like, my biggest criticism of Jamie Dixon. I hate his end-of-game management, and there's still some problems there. Like, TCU's blowing things like no other, but they seem to be more calm, cool, and collected when it comes to those situations. And when you look at their schedule, like, they poor non-conference, but they were one bad technical foul away from potentially beating Kansas. They had their worst half ever. Like, they had 14 or 15 turnovers against Iowa State and still got it within 2, lost by 2. And then, like, Cincinnati went to overtime. It's like this team is constantly playing close games and against good competition. And I love what I'm seeing. They're like Houston light in the sense, like, that's why we beat Houston, but, like, we're never going to have that ceiling that Houston has just because we play that similar, like, muck it up. We want to run fast. Like, the announcers will tell you every single game. It's the only stat they know about our team. Last year is Eddie Lampkin lost like 3,000 pounds. this year is TCU leads the nation in fast break points, and they're the only team that has over 20 per game. And it's a fun team to watch. It's run fun, just muck it up defense. It's a great thing to watch, and you see it on our rankings. Like, we're now like tied for third. Like, we're tied with Kansas and just beat Texas Tech last night. Like, I think Texas Tech's gonna slide a little, so I think we're feisty. We might be feisty for the 2 spot. Like, I think we should be looking for at least a top 5 finish easy.
Yeah, they're going to be a team that nobody wants to go against. Just the games I watch them, it's exactly that. The exact same thing that you're saying. It just seems like nothing comes easy whenever you're playing the Frogs. So they're going to be a fun team to watch. You know who my underrated team is this year? And I don't know if I'm just partial. It's BYU because I love Ali Khalifa. Oh, yeah. I am just all for it. He's out there trying to play like Jokic, and he's just throwing these insane backdoor passes. You know, he gets the ball at the top of the key. He is a lot of fun to watch, but all around, like, they've got some really good players. You know, I look at, you know, Jackson Robinson, you know, he's from Oklahoma. I'm Ada, Oklahoma. And it's really impressive, just the way that they play. And the way I watched that Texas game, I was like, okay, this team knows how to play basketball. They play well together. And I think that probably a lot of teams are looking at them like the same thing you said at the beginning of the episode. Oh, they were projected near the bottom of the Big 12. They really don't have much. I've been really impressed with them so far.
They are a house of horrors. Like, they're in a different type of way than like TCU, just because they move the ball so well. They always find the open shooter and can like shoot threes lights out. And I just still think like that's a good underrated, because if you look at the standings, they're still kind of like they're tied with Cincinnati, UCF, like below Baylor, and you're like, this team, like, but the advanced analytics love them. Like, I think BYU is still like top 15 in Ken Palm right now. Like, they play they're top 10, they're 10th. They play like a good fundamental style of basketball that I like feel like the record won't show it, but could be a potential just like Cinderella run throughout like March if they get hot, just because they just find the open man, and it's just they can hit down threes. Like, everybody, It seems like they have 4 guys on the floor that can hit an open 3 easy. And you just
Yeah.
don't really see that in college. Like, you really don't. Like, you don't see multiple elite 3-point shooters that,
Yeah, and
like,
the
teams can
games
roll out.
in the games I've watched of them, you can tell they're a different team when they're in Provo.
Yeah.
So it's just teams should not be looking forward to that on their schedule if they've got to go to BYU. Um, kind of, we talked a lot about some other top tier teams in the Big 12. We kind of touched on them, but let me just ask you a quick question. Not in terms of regular season, because I think we've already kind of determined that with Iowa State and the way that they play at home. March Madness, are they a believer? Could they be a Cinderella team?
I think so, but there's hesitancy there just because I feel like I'm always really high on Iowa State teams coming into March because I always think they played like a very aggressive style defense, and it seems to just flop in my face every single time we get to March. Like, I can't remember the time we've seen like a really, really deep Iowa State run. Granted, like, I think this is the best team they've ever had. Like, their offense is a little bit suspect still. Their defense is phenomenal. Like, it's top 10. Like, they just phenomenal. Just like muck it up, get turnovers like crazy. I worry about some of these teams. It's like that's kind of my thing with like I'm seeing the best versions of a lot of these like traditional like March Madness chokers, and I'm like, what's real, what's fake? It's like I see it with like a Purdue, I see it with a Tennessee, I see it with all these other like squads where it's like I know you're gonna choke in March, but like this year feels different. So I'm gonna go yes potential, but I'm hesitant. I'm hesitant because I know they'll do well. They'll probably do great at the Big 12 tournament. They'll probably even probably win it. Like I can see them. They always roll out for like the one in Kansas City. The hype will be going all-time highs into March, and then I just feel like they fall flat.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other team that we haven't talked about thus far you think that can make noise in March Madness? I'm talking about, let me just give you some teams that I think that probably should be in talks there. We already kind of touched on Baylor. I think that our impression of them is lower. I think that
Yeah.
they're going to continue to fall down lower and lower. What about a team like Cincinnati, UCF? What do you think about them?
So UCF, I don't think
UCF probably won't make the
not
tournament,
gonna.
but like
Yeah, probably
Cincinnati
not
is
gonna
going to
make
be
it.
on the bubble.
Yeah, Cincinnati's going to be on the bubble. I think Cincinnati is one of those teams that's like feisty in conference, but is probably really not going to go anywhere. They're just like they're a solid squad. Like they're a solid squad. I watched them. I went down to like the Cincinnati Baylor game. They play teams tough. Like they're big, they're athletic. Like I think they have like Edgerrin James' son maybe as point guard. Like they have like some NFL's running back son like as point guard, and
Really?
it's like they have
Edgerrin
somebody.
James? Okay, I gotta look
Maybe
this up. I don't see a James.
it's
So
not
I'll look it up.
James. It's somebody. It's somebody.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up. You keep talking about him.
But yeah, like I think they're just not like they don't have any ceiling to me. That's the thing. It's like they can make the tournament just because like they can scrap together just some good wins in this conference just because like basically any win besides maybe West Virginia, maybe OSU.
Oh, Jizzle James. Yeah, you're
just
right.
like yeah.
Yeah.
And so they have enough to get to the tournament. I don't think they make it far. I did write down a note. Like I noticed number 47 that starts for them. This like tall white guy. He has
41.
41.
Lukosius.
Yes.
Yes, the guy who has the automatic green light. That guy just shoots
Yes.
all over the place.
And his calves are the same size as his thighs. Like it is just one solid block going down the entire way. And that man, like when I watched him in person, like he has that Dion Waiters attitude. He has that
He
like
does.
I would rather go 0 for 30 than 1 for 20 because like I stopped shooting. Like he got the clutch basket. He hadn't hit a 3 all game, missed it, but like he just does not like he will not give the ball up. Like if he has any room of separation in that corner, that man is going to launch it. But I think those calves are a little too big. I think he needs to like take a step back a little bit because those things generating too much power. He's bricking things off the back iron. He's airballing things all over. Like he needs to chill it on the leg days and just like focus on some form and some shooting.
Yeah, you got to be careful with those type of players. What was that guy for West Virginia last year that I was constantly big time hater who had the most automatic green light? Because he'd go 1 for like 21 game, then he'd like absolutely destroy you.
Oh, who was it? 1 second, I'm looking it up.
Yeah, but what those type of players, you got to be careful with. And whenever we played them, Oklahoma played them, Lukosius was not having a good game. he missed a lot of shots, but his shots when he does make them are loud, and it really it completely changes the momentum of games because he'll come off a screen and take a hand right in his face and just shoot. He does not care.
I
So you
love
have
it.
to be careful of those guys. But to be honest with you, from what I've seen so far from Cincinnati, I'm not going to buy too much into them.
Yeah.
I haven't seen too much from them, but they will be a physical team. They're going to be tough in Big 12 play like most teams, but I wouldn't consider them on the level of like West Virginia and Oklahoma State. I'd say that they're above that. But still, I'm not really buying too much into them as a team that can get crazy in the tournament. Let's kind of talk about this mid tier of Big 12, like it's really I haven't been able to really develop an opinion of teams like UCF, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and then like I think Oklahoma State's not mid. They're the bottom.
I was about to say they are the basement.
To be honest with you, I was just naming the rest of the teams we haven't talked about. But and then after I said they're not. I said mid earlier, so they're legitimately the bottom of the bottom. But like West Virginia, even though they're 7-13 this year, like. I don't know. I still get nervous with West Virginia teams. Like, what do you think of West Virginia and Oklahoma State? Like, should you be scared to play them? Not scared, but should you not feel super uber confident going into those games?
West Virginia, like the analytics doesn't back it up, but they are like they're feisty.
They beat Kansas.
I know. Timothy Green pointed it out. Like they beat Texas and Kansas in like 1 week, and like for a team that you expect like West Virginia to really bottom out this year, like that's still impressive. But like everything since, it looks like that's kind of just fool's gold. I never like. I've said it a billion times before. One of my least favorite, probably my least favorite college basketball player is Kirk Risa. And I don't think your team's ever getting far if Kirk Risa is on your team. So it's like, you kind of made your bed by putting this guy on the squad. Like, he can't really shoot, but he has another, like, he has the green light. I don't think coaches give him the green light. I don't think players want him to have the green light, but ball stopper, like, I hate Kirk Risa. And so I'm kind of happy. Like, I feel bad for Timothy. Like, I don't want it sucks that it has to happen to West Virginia, but I love seeing Kirk Ariza's final season torpedo this bad. Like, I'm glad this guy is having a miserable time in his last year. Like, I'm cherishing every single moment that West Virginia is bad this year just because they deserve it. Like, they took this punk, they took this guy that, like, really, like, it doesn't get... Arizona doesn't get enough flack, probably because they're on the West Coast, but they have blundered two tournaments in a row, and it's, I think, partially his fault, and they're looking slightly, I think Arizona's deadlier without him on the floor now. I think Caleb Love is taking over, which is like another guy that, he's another green light guy, but I think a little bit better. Like, he's actually developing a little bit, but West Virginia.
You know why Caleb Love transferred from UNC? You know what I heard?
What was it?
Some locker room drama. Seems like he was messing with some other people's girls.
Oh,
that's what I heard.
It's not as bad as the Arkansas drama right now. That is the most unconfirmed stuff of players having affairs on other players in the locker room. Not their significant others, just the players. And I think it was originally posted on like Texags. So I'm like,
yeah, you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Read into it as you may, but it's just fun. Like that, the program right now, it's a lost season for them, so at least get some content out of it. But yeah, like I think West Virginia, like you still don't want to face them, but
they're still an easy W in terms of my Big 12 conference.
Yeah.
I look at West Virginia not on the same, even though they just lost to Oklahoma State. I still think Oklahoma State is significantly worse than them.
Yes, I think.
But I still say West Virginia. I look at the schedule, even though I'm a little nervous just because the history of what I know about West Virginia, I think that they're spiraling down and they should be viewed as a break of this tenuous Big 12 schedule. And I've continuously talked about this team. We still haven't talked about them yet. What are your thoughts on UCF?
UCF, they are home merchants. They like can only win at home. Besides that Texas one, which like must have meant something to them. But That's the thing. I'm like, defense is the name of the game in the Big 12. If you have a feisty defense, you're going to win a few games that you weren't supposed to. And they do have a feisty defense. They just don't have reliable scoring. So it's like, they're not going to make the tournament. They're going to be a hard out at home. Am I really scared of them? No. Do I really think they have much like talent on the roster? No. It's just, but they keep on proving me wrong. Like, I say this now, I haven't checked the Baylor score. They probably beat Baylor by now. And
No, Baylor's actually up by 1 right now.
oh,
Unfortunately, we got I think
okay.
5.5 minutes left.
Okay. It's just, yeah, they're slightly worse Cincinnati. That's like the best way to describe them. It's like Cincinnati's actually gonna like can travel on like home or road and be competitive. I don't really think UCF's very competitive outside of Orlando. Johnny Dawkins is a good coach, but yeah, they're just like they're the ultimate example of like joining the Big 12 from a G5 team, like G5 conference where they were decent and had some like good years, but it's just like they're getting outclassed on the games that they don't like. They're just they're just not as talented. So
I think we talked about all of the teams. We really didn't talk in depth about Baylor. Do you have anything else you want to say about Baylor?
yeah, I guess there's 2 teams we haven't talked about. I'll go Baylor first.
Oh, and then the Pokes, I guess.
Pokes, and then kind of K-State.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about K-State.
So
Tyler
we
Perry.
can kind of lump Baylor and K-State together in a sense that I don't know what happened whenever Jerome Tang went to K-State, that it seems like Jerome Tang was the defensive guy, Scott Drew was the offensive guy, and now each like team refuses to play what the other one doesn't specialize in. Like, Baylor used to be a well-rounded team, and now they only want to score. They're not that intimidating on defense. And, like, you're seeing it. Like, they're playing close games all the time, and they're losing some games that are easily winnable. Like, they have, what's his name? He's probably one of the best freshmen this year. Gonna go like top 5 in the NBA, maybe. What's his name? Jacoby Walter?
Jacoby Walter.
Yeah. And he's like good, but it just, something's off about this Baylor team. They just want to score. They don't want to play defense. It seems like Scott Drew is like, what made Scott Drew successful was bringing in these like a 5-star guy to supplement a really heavy like senior roster. And this year, like, you're looking at the depth chart, it's like Jalen Bridges and Ray J. Dennis are kind of like the only like seniors there, and then like Misi Walters both freshmen. It just doesn't seem like they have that good veteran core anymore. They don't have that Mark Vital guy off the bench that can like really get that squad going. Like, they need that like physicality, that toughness that they just don't have anymore. So like, they're gonna make the tournament. They're gonna be feisty because they can just score. Like, they're really talented scoring.
First round exit though.
Yeah, but it just seems like a little foolish. And then we gotta go to K-State. K-State's the opposite. No consistent scoring. Play good defense, but no consistent scoring. It's killing them. But Jerome Tang is such a fraud. Like, I'm tired of last year with Marquise Noel and like how far they went. Like, it's going to put, like, the narrative was that Scott Drew was not the one running the show at Baylor. It was more Jerome Tang. I don't think Jerome Tang knows what he's doing. He just whines. Like, Jerome Tang is consistently, I was looking around the internet, I was looking at the message boards today, because I see Jerome Tang as the whiniest coach in the Big 12, by far. Next to none. I know a lot of other ones get teased, a lot of them whine in the post game, but I think Jerome Tang, every single game, has something wrong. It's something wrong with the other team, it's something wrong with the other way the team's acting, like, kind of like Coach K, but without the pedigree, without the actual success. Like, he seems like he wants to lecture. Like, the other day, it was like Houston was talking smack to one of his players, and he steps in, gets a T for, like, cursing out a kid, and he's like, I'm gonna play for my guys. Like, they shouldn't be talking like that. You're not Coach K. Like, Coach K notoriously would go to the team's locker room after the game and lecture them. It was the most annoying thing ever, but he's Coach K. He can kind of do it. You kind of got to get away from it. It was a joke, but he looks like an absolute clown when they're just losing. K-State was projected pretty high, like, coming into the season. Like, they weren't going to be, they had a lot to replace last year, but they're still projected 6. Like, they were above Iowa State. They're supposed to make the tournament. Now they look like they're falling more into the category of the easy wins, like an easy dub. Like, oh, you just went in there, took their lunch. I thought the addition of Tyler Perry was going to be great. Like, I was like, oh, if like Marquise Noel's not going to be there and you're going to put Tyler Perry, a guy that was like at the helm of those Grant McCasland UNT teams, like, sign me up. Like, this guy won the NIT. Like, he looked great. He's kind of the only consistent offense they have. Like, that's it. I'm tired of Jerome Tang. I think he's a fraud. It's always a show with him. It's like when they win, he gets to stand up on the table and give a speech to the entire crowd. When they lose, it's always a lecture. Like the other day, he's blaming Iowa State for like recording his timeouts behind the bench and stuff like that. And that's why he's getting technical fouls. It's just getting ridiculous. It's a technical foul and it's always some conspiracy. It's always something against K-State. And he's just a delusional man, it seems like at this point. Like, it's just, I don't think Jerome Tang's as good as everybody thought just because he had a deep run in March.
Yeah, I think losing Bruce Weber was like a big hit for them. But you're making me think, like, who else would I want for a Kansas State coach? And I thought, I miss Frank Martin. I wonder where he is nowadays. I couldn't remember where he was. He's at UMass right now.
Yep.
Man, I loved me a good Frank Martin on the sidelines. Man, that guy looked scary.
UMass still, or they were a feisty team in non-conference that I think just, imploded in the A-10. But, yeah, I don't know. It's like Jerome Tang feels like it's going to be like late Bruce Brown all over again. It's like the team's not going to completely bottom out. Or maybe it will in a few years, but, it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't, I don't know. Something's off there, and I just feel like it's not going to end well in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just watching the Oklahoma-Kansas State game last night where that Kansas State team did not score until like the 9 minutes in. Yeah, it was pitiful to watch. I was just like laughing. I was like, I don't have to watch this whole game because this is not even worth it at this point. Oklahoma played like trash too, but thank God Kansas State played even worse. Like, I don't know. Kansas State's a team that started off well. People think highly of them at the beginning of the season. I'm ready to start selling stock. They've probably been selling stocks for probably the past couple months too. So I think they're going to continue to fall.
I think they're kind of the antithesis of what Iowa State was. Like, Iowa State kind of had a weak non-conference schedule, but it's really come into their own come conference time. And I think Kansas State has kind of revealed who they are. Like, they're just not that team. Like, they don't have those special guys. Like, Tyler Perry is not enough for them. And I feel like we're going to see a lot of this if Jerome Tang wants to keep on just trying to rebuild through the portal. Like, Jamie Dixon does it too. So, that's how my team's built. But it just doesn't seem like he has a good philosophy.
Gotcha. I just completely lost our whole overlay. It's back. Okay. Do you have anything to say about the Oklahoma State Cowboys?
Mike Boynton's a nice guy. It sucks that it's that's going to be one of those that is it sucks that it doesn't work out. It's you want the best for him. He's had to deal with some tough circumstances whenever they got a postseason ban. And none of the players are still on the team type of thing. It sucks. But Gallagher Iba just feels, it's sad watching it. It used to, I feel had some pop. That's the thing growing up is I know OU's always had some pretty good basketball teams and stuff like that, but it's more the OSU I felt was always solid, always threatening to march, and we just haven't seen that in a long time. I hope OSU I wish they would kind of downsize Gallagher Iba again. They expanded it, and now I feel it's too big. They don't have a good home court advantage. They kind of got to go the Waco model, I think, and just rethink how they're doing basketball there. Because, having a giant arena in Stillwater is not going to fill fans maybe one time a year. That's about it. So, I think OSU should just take this time, look inward, see what they want to do about basketball, because it's sad. It's sad.
If I recall, I'm pretty sure Oklahoma State almost beat TCU this year. Is that right?
They did. Oh, they were threatening the entire, it was one of those that it was just it felt like TCU was always going to come back, but it's you're kind of getting 10 minutes, there's 10 minutes left and we're still down by 2. And it's okay, guys, let's just turn it on, turn it on. And in the end, it worked out fine, but it was just just kind of played like that's the thing. That's another critique of Jamie Dixon. It's just like he always plays close games, which I think means like playing down to your competition sometimes because that's exactly what he was doing. But yeah, it's sad. It's sad to watch those guys. Like it's kind of the auto dub right now in the Big 12. It's like
Yeah. And they're gonna have to make a move after this season, but
yeah.
it's gonna suck. They're already in a bad position to be with, like, and Mike Boynton did so many great things for this program, so I really do feel for him.
Yeah, it just feels like he's not bringing in the guys and he's only losing his good ones. So that's just you can't have that in modern day college basketball. Like you at least have to, if you can't, you need to keep your guys and then be bringing in more. So
So kind of rounding off this whole podcast and Big 12 basketball preview / middle of the season preview for us on the Schooner Pod. Big picture, do you think the Big 12 has a team that will be in the Final Four? Yes or no?
yes.
Okay. Do you think you'll have a Big 12 championship game? Anyone in the championship game?
That one's a hard one. Because like I kind of see it as there's 3 elite teams in the country right now. It's Purdue, it's UConn, it's Houston. I wanted leaned yes because it's like Purdue's success in March Madness is lacking. But
What about UNC though? I think UNC.
UNC's feisty. Like I'm not giving him enough credit just because I'm like, oh, I feel like I've seen this one before. Like UNC is definitely feisty. Like they had a rough one against Georgia Tech last night. It just kind of lost an inexcusable one, but like seems to be the only diamond in the ACC right now. Like the ACC
RJ Davis is so good.
Good. He's so good. Like I want to start like he's not going to win National Player of the Year, but I just want the like narrative to be like it's a 2-horse race because he's really put this team on his back. Like he's elevated them. Like I thought Hubert Davis is like not a very good coach, and I thought we were going to see like UNC's probably always going to be good. It's hard to bottom out there when you have the talent, but like I just felt like Hubert Davis wasn't going to take it to the next level. It just feels like RJ Davis has put that team on his back this year. Like they're a threat, but like that's the thing. It's like in the championship, I look down just like the top 20 of Kim Palm, and it's like I see a lot of teams that can compete. It's like Tennessee is a great defensive team, but Dalton Connect could be like he's one of the best offensive players in the country. North Carolina, you mentioned, like Illinois looks feisty at times. I don't want that. I don't want Illinois to be in the finals, but there's a lot of solid teams around there that it's like I could easily see a Big 12 team not ending up, and like that's what I'm more worried about. Is like Big 12 only has like 2 go through to like the Elite 8, and people are like, I thought this was supposed to be the best conference. Why aren't y'all dominating this? And it's like, it's because of March Madness. Like in a single elimination tournament, that stuff happens. But
yeah, it's gonna be mad this year. There's no doubt about it. I don't know if we're gonna like see even all 1 seeds in the Final Four. It could be one of those years.
Yeah, it's because all the 1 seeds have flaws, and like they seem to get like none of them can just like dominate all the time. It's like Houston has slipped up twice big. Purdue seems to like mess around with teams. They always have. Connecticut just seems to have injury issues. Like they're probably like the back-to-back storyline like probably should be getting more. And then it's just it's everybody at the top seems to choke all the time, which is going to make this really interesting. Like this is really interesting, and I feel like some of the mid-major crop has now like moved up. Like the Mountain West I think is like the ACC right now is closer to the Mountain West than the ACC is to the Big 12, I think, in power.
I watched Mountain West a little bit, and I was impressed, honestly.
New Mexico is fire. New Mexico is so good. He's so good. Rick Pitino's son is the coach there, and they are fantastic.
You know, a team that I also like is Boise State.
They've been slumping though, bad. Like I think tonight they might, or did they play New Mexico last night? Yeah, like lost by double digits.
Yeah, New Mexico looks like the team, but still, They've been keeping things close. Like they lost to Utah State at home, but
Yeah.
Utah State's another good team.
And then Gonzaga might not make the tournament this year. That's going to be an interesting
Weird
storyline.
scenario.
It's bad. It's not a bad Gonzaga team. That's the thing. They're not horrendous. It's just they're not great. And so it's hard whenever you like schedule like Gonzaga and you're just a good team and you play all the elite teams around the country and then lose to them and then get to conference play and you have no like resume wins that you could possibly add. So you just have to win the tournament in order to make the tournament.
Yeah.
Like they have to win their conference tournament.
All right. I think that's it for the Big 12 basketball episode that we got going on. Next week, if you're wondering what we're going to talk about next week, I have no idea. We have no plans. We will figure it out. Maybe around Monday, we'll figure out what we're talking about. That's just the beauty of the off season. We'll watch these basketball games this weekend. We'll have a good time and see if anything big happens. And we'll talk to you guys next Wednesday. But I think that's it. And I'm not going to ask if you have anything left to say because that's what Bobby always does, and I don't want to do that. So it was nice talking. It was nice talking to you, Blake, about some college basketball. It's almost February, and then March is upon us. So everyone listening, remember, give us a like on YouTube, subscribe, and then subscribe to us on all your podcasts. It was a pleasure. We'll be giving you content every single week. But this was the Weekend Spread / Schooner Pod talking about basketball. We'll see y'all next week.